Good afternoon, everyone, especially to our instructor, Vivian Ascaris. So today, I am going to discuss to you my chosen topic, which is the Ascaris lumbricoids and Trichuris Trichura. So this is my learning objectives. Hindi ko na siya babasahin para hindi humaba yung video. Stop nyo na lang siya para mabasa nyo. Thank you. So now we are going to discuss first the Ascaris lumbricoids, or what is Ascaris lumbricoids. An ascaris is a large parasitic worm that causes ascariasis in humans. So it measures 15 to 35 centimeter length in adulthood. And some of us na-experience yung labasan nitong roundworm na to. Kasi ito yung sinasabi ng mga midwife na bulate. So, it is a type of helminthiasis and one of the group of neglected tropical disease. So, helminthiasis is also known as worm infection. So, it is a macroparasitic disease of humans and other animals in which a part of our body is infected with these parasitic worms known as helminths. So this ascariasis typically seen in a tropical area or tropical na mga lugar. Just like Asia, South Americas, most especially South Africa. So let's move forward to the classification of this Ascaris or its taxonomy. So an Ascaris lumbricoid is a kingdom of Animalia and a phylum of Nematoda. Hindi ko na babasahin pababa kasi basta tagal. So, what do you mean by phylum Nematoda? So, ang Nematoda or nematode, any of a major group of long cylinder-shaped worms that are parasites in animals or plants or live in soil or water, and also called roundworm. And as you can see in an illustration, those are the kinds of nematodes, and Ascariasis belongs with it. Let's move on from its classification, and we are now in characteristics of these roundworms. So the females of Ascaris are longer and thicker with 4 to 5 mm in diameter, and males are usually 2 to 4 mm in diameter. So later on, makikita natin yung pagkakaiba ng haba nila. So the tail end of the male Ascaris is curved ventrally and contains a cloacal aperture. Female genital aperture lies about 1/3 of the body from the interior end, and a sexual reproduction does not occur. So which means that these roundworms reproduce sexually. So sperm and eggs are produced by the separate male and female adults. And the fertilization takes place inside the female organism, just like the human. So the next one is the mouth is present at the anterior and is guarded by 3 lips. So as you can see in the illustration, may 3 lips po ang roundworms. So they have a complete and straight digestive system with mouth, muscular pharynx, and anus. But circulatory and respiratory system are absent. Why are respiratory and circulatory organs not present in Ascaris? Because anaerobic respiration. So in Ascaris, respiratory organs are absent, but the parasites breathe anaerobically because the oxygen level in the host intestine is very low. So what are the symptoms of these roundworms? So first, often no symptoms or asymptomatic, and then fever, pain, malnutrition, in liver, obstructive jaundice, heart, chest pain, abdomen or abdominal pain, and then in lungs, dry cough and dyspnea. So these are the symptoms of uninfected by Ascaris. So these are the length of female and male Ascaris. So as you can see, mas mahaba yung female compare sa male, pero mas malaki yung katawan ng male. So ang female may mouth, may excretory pore, female genital aperture, yung lateral line niya, may anus din siya and tail. Ang male naman is may mouth, may excretory pore din, may lateral line din. And also cloacal aperture, penial setae, and then yung tail niya naman is curved compared doon sa female. So when it comes to the eggs of this Ascaris, meron siyang unfertilized and meron din siyang fertilized. And when it comes to the eggs of Ascaris naman is meron siyang fertilized and meron din siyang unfertilized. Yung fertilized is nasa left side and nasa right side yung unfertilized. So yung fertilized eggs are laid by females after inseminated by mating with a male. So these are embryonated and develop into the infected or infective eggs. And yung unfertilized eggs naman are laid by uninseminated female. So these are non-embryonated and cannot become infective. So move forward. Dito na tayo sa infections and transmission. So paano nga ba nai-infect yung bata or matanda nitong Ascaris and yung transmission niya or mode of transmission niya. So, infection begins when a person swallows fertilized Ascaris egg. Ito yung parang mostly sa mga bata nangyayari kasi most of the time kasi yung mga bata naglalaro sa labas. And then, ayun, nasa lupa sila tapos kinakalkal and doon kasi nakatira yung mga roundworms na to. And pwede nilang malunok yun. Pero only fertilized eggs can cause infection. Yung fertilized lang. So, ang ascariasis is spread directly from person to person. Instead, a person has to come into contact with soil mixed with human or pig feces. As you can see sa explanation dyan sa baba. And that pig feces contains ascariasis eggs or infected water. Pwede rin kasi sa water, when, most especially hindi siya na boiled. So in some developing countries, human feces are used for fertilizer. So di ko lang alam kung meron ba dito sa atin ginagawang fertilizer yung feces ng human o yung poop natin. Kasi ang alam ko is yung poop lang ng animals. Poor sanitary facilities allow human waste to mix with soil in yards. So, sabi ko nga, so ditches and fields. So, people can also get from getting uncooked pig and also chicken liver. Pwede rin kung infected siya. Small children are often play in dirt. And then, infection can occur if they dirty fingers in their mouths, unwashed, fruits or yung vegetables grown in contaminated soil also can transmit the ascariasis eggs. Kaya be mindful sa lahat ng pinapakain, pinapainom sa mga anak natin and also always wash their hands. So kung makikita nyo dito sa illustration ko yung batang nilabasan nung bulate sa bunganga or pwede rin sa ilong. At may nakita na rin akong ganyan na taga doon sa amin na kung saan doon lumabas sa ilong niya yung bulate. Sa life cycle na naman tayo ng Ascaris. So ano yung mga nagaganap sa life cycle ng Ascaris? The life cycle of Ascaris involves several stages. So the first one is the adult worms in the small intestine or the adult Ascaris worms live in the small intestine of infected individuals. So, the female worms can produce about 200,000 eggs per day yun, per day. After that, egg excretion naman. So, the eggs produced by the female worms are excreted with the stool of infected individuals. And then, soil contamination na. So, the excreted eggs contaminate the soil, especially in areas with poor sanitation, as I've said kanina. And after that, ingestion of eggs na. So, people become infected with Ascaris when they swallow or nalunok yung mga eggs ng Ascaris. So, this can happen when contaminated soil comes into contact with food, yung water, and then yung maruming hands nila, and then they put into their mouth. And after that, hatching of eggs na. So once they ingested the eggs, hatch in the intestine and release larvae. So alam nyo naman siguro yung mukha ng larvae, yung parang maliit lang siya nung bulate. The next one is the migration to the lungs. So yung larvae penetrate the wall of small intestine. Papasok siya doon sa wall of the small intestine and then travel through the lymphatic vessel and bloodstream to the lungs. So after that, maturation in the lungs. So in the lungs, yung larvae, dun siya magmamature. So over a period of 10 to 14 days. After that, coughing and swallowing. So the mature larvae are then coughed up from the lungs and then swallowed. So they return to the small intestine. Babalik sila sa small intestine where they develop into adult worms. And the last one is the adult worm reproduction. So dito na magko-continue yung cycle as the adult worms in the small intestine produce more eggs or another eggs which are excreted with the stool and then completing the life cycle. So important note that the life cycle of Ascaris lumbricoids may take 4 to 8 weeks to be completed. And as I've said that the infection can be asymptomatic in some individuals, so while others may experience yung symptoms which is the abdominal pain, yung bloating, yung nausea, and then yung vomiting and diarrhea. So diagnosis and treatments of Ascaris. Diagnosis, healthcare providers are easily diagnose infection by examining the stool sample from the patient using a microscope to identify Ascaris lumbricoids eggs. So yung stool sample is yun yung feces or yung poop nung infected na bata or yung matanda. So eggs won't appear in the stool until at least 40 days so after the infection. So and if the infection consists of only male worms, there won't be any eggs. It's because yung babae lang yung nagle-laid ng eggs. Pwede ka ring magpa-blood test so that blood test can be conducted to check for an increased number of a certain type of white blood cell called eosinophils. So, yung imaging test, in some cases, imaging tests such as yung x-ray or yung ultrasounds may be used to evaluate the number and location of the worm in our body. So, sa drugs naman, so infections can be treated with drugs called antihelmintic medications such as the albendazole and mebendazole are the drugs of choice for treating Ascaris infection. Pwede rin yung nitazosanide and also yung ivermectin can also be used. Treatment with these drugs helps remove adult worms from the gastrointestinal tract, reducing the illness and the transmission of infection. So how to prevent this worm infestation? Good hygiene practices. So yung hand washing, wash hands with soap and water before handling or eating any food, lalo na sa mga bata. Water sources, so avoid drinking any local water sources when traveling. So use only boiled water or bottled water. Next one is food safety. Wash raw vegetables and fruits thoroughly before consuming them. So if you can clean them yourself, it's best to avoid consuming them. So cooking when traveling, eat only foods that are cooked well and served hot. Sanitation and waste disposal, so clean surroundings, use a disinfectant. Then, bath daily and also avoiding contact with contaminated soil. So, Ascaris eggs can remain infectious in soil for years. So, avoid contact with contaminated soil, especially in areas with poor sanitation. So, these are the risk factors, yung age, warm climate, and then poor sanitation. So, complications naman, yung slowed growth, intestinal blockage and perforation, and then duct blockages. Moving on from Ascaris, so we are now in Trichuris Trichura. Trichuris Trichura, also known as the human whipworm. So, it is a parasitic roundworm that causes trichuriasis in humans. So, it is commonly found in tropical area also. Same with Ascaris lumbricoids. So, this Trichuris Trichura is also a nematode. Kung ang Ascariasis is roundworm, ang Trichura naman is whipworm. Ascaris live in a small intestine. Ang Trichuris Trichura naman lives in the large intestine of human. Approximately 600 to 800 million people around the world have a whipworm infection. So this type of infection can also occur in animals including the cats and dogs. So as you can see in the illustration, yung male whipworm is yung nasa taas and nasa baba yung female. So as you notice, the differences of their body, their length, and yung thick ng katawan nila is magkaiba talaga. So the worms has thin and anterior and thick posterior parts. So they attach to intestinal mucosa by embedding their anterior part. So they feed on tissue fluid, not blood. At kung makikita nyo sa illustration ko yung white and then dyan sila naka-attach sa mucosa. And located siya in large intestine. So in classifications, they have similarities, which is the kingdom, Animalia, and phylum Nematoda. Then sa class, order, family, genus, and then species lang ang hindi. So, morphology or yung characteristics ng Trichuris Trichura, yung shape niya is round, narrow, long, anterior part, and shorter and thicker. So, yung male, yun yung shorter, and then yung female, yung pinakamahaba. And then, yung male is thicker than the female. So, the color of Trichuris Trichura worms can vary, but they are generally described as pinkish white or yung grayish white. The adult females are approximately 35 to 50 millimeters long with a straight posterior end, while the adult males are approximately 30 to 45 millimeters long with a coiled posterior end. And just like Ascaris lumbricoids, it has a sexual mode of reproduction. So, they are sexually reproducing organisms. So, look at the internal structure of the female adult whipworm. It has got some eggs, the uterine tubules, intestine, and hanggang sa cuticle. And when it comes to the eggs of this Trichura, its shape is oval or yung barrel shape. And also, lemon shape din siya. Then with a thick shell and possesses a pair of polar plugs at each end. So as you can see, yung plug may nasa baba at may nasa taas din siya. So just look at the pictures if you want to see the other parts of the eggs. So the size of the eggs is 50 to 55 micrometers long and then 20 to 25 micrometers wide. And its colors, honey brown and pink on H&E stain or yung hematoxylin and eosin stain. So the eggshell is thick and then the contents of the shell is the mass of granules or yung unembryonated. So why is eggs of this whipworm are unembryonated when passing stool? Because they need to develop in the environment before becoming infectious, so which is in the soil. So ang tawag sa development process na yun is embryonation, and as I've said, it occurs outside the human host, which is in the soil. So let's talk about the symptoms of this whipworm. So this whipworm infection can cause a variety of symptoms, but depending on the intensity of the infection. Pero, ang mild infections are often asymptomatic. So, wala tayong nararamdaman. Parang wala lang sa atin kasi feeling natin, ay, lagi naman natin itong nararamdaman. Nawawala-wala man din siya. Parang ganun. So, the following are the symptoms of this whipworm infection. We have the bloody diarrhea, yung painful or frequent defecation, yung abdominal pain, nausea, vomiting, headache, sudden and unexpected weight loss, and also yung rectal prolapse, especially in children with heavy infections. And when it comes to the development of Trichuris Trichura's eggs, the eggs are single-celled when passed with human feces, and then it developed into 2-cell, 4-cell, and then the egg contain larvae in soil. So when the egg passed with human feces, these eggs are not infectious when they are excreted. Pag nalabas na sila. So after nila malabas dun sa host, so once nasa soil na sila, the eggs require a warm or moist environment to develop. So the eggs embryonate, which involves the development of larvae within the egg. So larvae na sila. But then again, magiging infectious lang sila after 2 to 3 weeks or 15 to 30 days. So move forward to the life cycle of a whipworm. So the life cycle begins when a person ingests the eggs of Trichuris Trichura. So these eggs are typically found in contaminated soil, sa lupa, lalo na yung mga maruruming lupa with human feces. So and also food that has been contaminated with feces containing the eggs. So that freshly passed eggs are non-infected to humans, hindi pa sila infected, and they require a period of maturation in the soil. In the soil, the eggs undergo a process called embryonation, where they mature and become infective to humans. After 15 to 30 days in the soil, the eggs become capable of causing infection. So that infective eggs are ingested by a new host. So typically through, as I've said, contaminated food or water. So once nasa loob na siya ng host, typically in the small intestine, the eggs hatch. And then that's the time that the larvae are released. So after the larvae release, it penetrates to the villi of the small intestine and continue to develop. So after that, the young worms then move to the cecum and penetrate or papasok siya or didikit siya sa mucosa. So in the large intestine, the worms complete their development into adult worms. So from small intestine, nag-migrate sila and develop sa large intestine. So the last stage is the maturity and egg production. So the adult whipworms reside in the large intestine, as I've said, and also in cecum and then appendix of the host. So doon sila maninirahan, and then the female whipworms begin to lay eggs after 3 months. And that female whipworms can lay up to 20,000 eggs per day. Ang dami. So the lifespan of the adult whipworms is about 1 year. So matagal-tagal. So, from the second illustration, from egg to larvae to adult, and then maglilay eggs naman yung female whipworms. And that's the life cycle of Trichuris. So, infections and transmission. So, may infect ang tao by the ingestion of infective eggs that contain larvae. And the reason why may infect sila, it's because of the contaminated food or drink, and then yung hands with soil. So after the larva hatch in the human small intestine, magmamigrate sila sa large intestine, and then mag-a-attach sila sa mucosa of the large intestine, and then dun sila magde-develop. Magde-develop sila for 3 months. After mating, a female produce another egg. In complications, rectal prolapse yung pinaka-severe na infections nitong whip. As you can see in the illustration, may lumabas sa puwerta ng infective host. In risk factors na naman, anyone can infect by this whip. Especially children, and then also yung poor hygiene and sanitation. Nasa risk factors din yung mga taong naninirahan with the hot and humid climate. Diagnosis. So how is a whipworm infection diagnosed? So to diagnose a whipworm infection, your doctor will order a stool. So they will require you to give a sample of your feces to a lab for testing. That stool test can determine whether there are whipworms or whipworm eggs in your intestines and feces. The treatment. So the most common and effective treatment for a whipworm infection is an antiparasitic medication such as similar with Ascaris, albendazole, and mebendazole. So the medication usually needs to be taken for 1 to 3 days. Side effects are minimal. So once na nawala na yung mga symptoms, your doctor may want to perform another stool test to make sure that the infection is gone. Prevention naman, do not defecate in an open area. The next one is keep your surroundings clean. Always drink clean water and keep food covered. Wear your shoes and then wash your hands with soap, especially before eating and using toilet. Always wash your fruits and vegetables with clean water and avoid eating raw food. Keep your nails clean and short. Be mindful sa mga pinapakain o pinapainom natin sa mga bata and also. At kapag may nararamdaman na sila and one of the symptoms of the trichuris, then dalhin sila sa malapit na clinic. And that's all. Thank you so much for listening. And if you have a question, I will try my best to answer it.